again, everybody, and welcome inside the VIBELAND Sports Studios. I'm Todd Miller. Casady Fletcher is with us, and back from the living dead, our good friend KP. You're with us.
It's good to be back, and it's good to have a voice, and it's good to not cough every 10 seconds, so I'm feeling a lot better, and it's good to be back here in the studio.
We provided you a little entertainment last week. Did we check out all right without you? It was kind of weird not having you sitting in that chair over there.
Well, yeah, it was weird not being here, but it was weird to listen to the episode, and you guys, took it away without me, so, man, you didn't even have me here to talk the listeners' ears off. You guys did it without me.
That's right.
Hour and 26.
Hey,
got after it.
We sure missed you though on that episode, and I'm so glad to have you back in the studio here today. And it's
it's good to be back. I'll see what I can contribute to this OU Texas week as a non-biased party. It's still, man, what a week we've got coming up. This is
you
this
just
is college
never
football
know
at its
what
best.
you have until it's gone.
That's right. Glad to have the whole squad
And
back.
man,
though.
we missed you, but boy, it's good to have you back.
It's good to be back.
All right, this week OU Texas. We'll recap OSU Texas Tech. Toby Rowland, the voice of the Sooners, joins us in segment number 2. Don't forget to join us and follow us on Twitter and Instagram, where we have our fan poll questions of the week. That's at VIBELAND Sports, also on Facebook, VIBELAND Sports. Last week's fan poll question of the week: do you agree with the new California legislation that will allow college athletes in that state to be paid? I was a little surprised. 61% said no. Casady and I were among the 39% that said yes. I still don't think people completely understand this. I think they hear the word paid and they think it's paychecks coming to the mail every week, every 2 weeks. This is simply money that will be given to the athletes instead of the universities for the use of their signatures, their photographs, their endorsements. And I see nothing wrong with that.
No, it'd be treating college athletes like Olympians, where they do get a small stipend to go to the Olympics, but it's nothing crazy. You're not getting rich off of that, but you actually do make money by being able to sell your likeness, use your face on a sandwich promotion, or have somebody help you with an ad campaign, and you're the face of that. So just being able to utilize your own face and likeness seems to be a pretty fair way to go about it. And again, that's not saying that the universities are going to be paying these student athletes. It's that they now have the ability to get paid outside of sports.
KP, what's your thoughts on this? Because you didn't have a chance to address it last week. I get one side of the coin where people say, no, they're getting a free education. Every other student leaves with college debt. Mm-hmm. They don't leave with college debt, and they leave with an education. But what other people don't understand that argue that is these guys, if you've never been around a college athletic program at any level, it is a job. There is no time to go out and work a 40-hour week like a lot of other students do, or a 24-hour week. Where do you stand on this issue?
See, I was on the other side of this, but I've kind of come around to it because at the end of the day,
that's where we were.
It's just these are human beings that happen to play sports, and because they do that, there's a rule that says they can't. Like Casady, Todd, and I, if Whataburger showed up here and says we want to pay you guys to talk about Whataburger.
I could stand up on this camera right now. Yeah. They would know that I've been endorsing Whataburger.
Give me that sweet and spicy burger all day. I mean, but I'm just a guy. Why shouldn't I be able to capitalize on an opportunity because I play college sports? Like, granted, if I'm a college athlete, I probably get more opportunities, but why should I be prevented by making money? If somebody thinks my face or things I can say can help them make money, and I'm a supporter of that, why not be able to make a little extra change on the side? Like you said, Todd, it's nearly impossible for these people to be student athletes and have a job. Quick story here real quick. I work in a professional job and a professional career. My boss told me when he was hiring people out of college, he looked at their resumes. He said the first thing he looked for was if they worked while they were a student. If they could have had a 4.0, if they had no work experience in college, that resume was in the trash can. Because he wanted to see people that could work and go to school, balance and maintain a life. Now, student athletes, I'd say they maintain that by being a student and an athlete, but some of these people don't have the opportunity to work, and that could hurt them later on in life. So why not be able to benefit now? I see no reason not to. I'm all for it.
Okay, I'm going to bring you in personally in this deal because you have a brother, Mookie Salam, who is an outstanding track star at the University of Oklahoma. He's the equivalent of let's say a D.D. Westbrook in football, just at a lesser-known sport. to me, this potentially, and I think it's a framework, there's got to be a lot of things tweaked and worked out to smooth out to make this work. To me, a guy like Mookie Salam and non-revenue producing sports stand to really have a chance to benefit from this.
Absolutely. I mean, just putting his name, I mean, like you said, track isn't that big of a sport, but if he was recognizable at the time, God only knows the marketing campaigns they could have done and how big they could have grown that sport if he was able to get out more and publicize more and, have local car dealerships, I mean, you could just think of all the ads you can do. Oh, get here as fast as Mookie or something like. I mean,
great.
I was just off the top of my head. I mean, there is a million things that you could use speed to sell. And so, to put your point, absolutely, it would have grown the sport, grown his career. I don't see any negative consequences to that.
And you know what? He wouldn't be here with us because Mookie would have made so much money. He would have funneled it down to KP, and he wouldn't have even answered our phone calls.
I was a marketing major in college. Oh man, I would have just killed. We both would have had no worry about work later if we were able to benefit off that.
Interesting stuff. And again, 61% of you that voted on Twitter last week to our fan poll question of the week said, nope, you don't really like or agree with the new California law. 39% of you said yes. OU Texas week. Everybody thinks their rival and their big game is the best there is. In this part, there's no bigger game than OU Texas. And I'll put this game up against any other in the country. Army-Navy's a little different, not just because of football, but Casady, you and I both have been to this game multiple times, and there is nothing like the State Fair of Texas in Dallas, half Longhorn, half Sooner fans.
Oh, my gosh. It's truly an indescribable atmosphere and feeling unless you've been there. The whole spectacle of it is just something that you have to experience at some point as a sports fan. I truly believe that. And I would put all the other good college football rivalries up there with it. But I'm telling you, this one is something different because of the atmosphere around the game. You've got the State Fair of Texas happening right outside the game. You walk through the fair to get to the Cotton Bowl. You're there again. It is split right down the 50-yard line where you've got Sooners on one side, Longhorns on the other. And
unless, of course, it's the two games I've been to that OU beat them by about 45 or 50 points. And then it's great because you have almost the whole State Fair of Texas to yourself. You have the Cotton Bowl to yourself.
Yes.
And a bunch of Sooner fans are all giving us the horns down signal.
It's beautiful.
There's nobody there to offend.
Hey, well, that's it. Exactly.
They're all gone.
There's just a bunch of bleachers on their side of the stadium. And that's a beautiful sight to behold for sure. But one thing that I don't think a lot of people realize is that it's not like the divide is in the middle. There's even stairs between them. It's not like it's between sections. It's right in the middle of a row where it might be seats 1 through 12 are OU fans, and then from 13 through 24, it's the Texas side. And so you have these two heated rivals who their fans have to stand shoulder to shoulder for this entire game, and things can get heated. And it makes the atmosphere incredible. It makes just every time there's a big play, you can physically feel the momentum move across the stadium. And there's nothing like it, and I don't think there's anything close to it in sports.
KP, I know you probably haven't been there because you're an Oklahoma State fan. So I'm going to ask you your thoughts on the game. We have two big Sooner fans of this podcast, and I have publicly said at the start of the year I thought OU would lose one regular season game, and it would be this game. Now, I don't know that that's still going to happen. I see a very close game. You disagree with that?
I think OU comes in here, guys, and again, all the Sooner fans listening, I'm sorry, I know you're going to tell me to pump the brakes, but I'm not a Sooner fan, so I'm going to speak what I feel here, and I think OU is going to dominate this game. And there's a couple reasons, but the number one big reason that's going to happen is because of Jalen Hurts. Sam Ehlinger is a good quarterback, don't get me wrong, but Jalen Hurts has taken this OU team to a different level. With his leadership, with his confidence, he's been there before, he's said it this week, and they said, what's it like playing, or what are you thinking about coming into OU Texas? And he's like, not to be disrespectful, but I've played in the Iron Bowl. I've played in 2 national championships. I've played for Nick Saban. So this seems to be just another Saturday for Jalen, and I think all OU fans would agree, and Toby kind of mentions it before, but it's not just another Saturday. OU Texas is a different breed, and as you guys have said before, usually the worse Texas is and the better OU is, the more likely Texas is to win that game. It's a toss-up. I think, Casady, you've said it before, OU could go into this game 6-0, and Texas is going to go 0-6, and it's probably still a coin flip game. But this year, I don't think that's the case. I think Jalen Hurts has taken this OU team to another level because of his on-the-field play, his decision-making, his touchdown-to-interception ratio, but the biggest thing is his leadership. That guy leads this OU team in a different way that they've never been led before. And I've said this before, guys. I'm going to go out on a limb and say it here. I think at the end of his career, we're talking about Jalen Hurts as one of the best, if not the best, quarterback to play for the University of Oklahoma. And no, I'm not forgetting about the Heisman Trophy winner Kyler Murray last year. And no, I'm not forgetting about the Heisman Trophy winner the year before, Baker Mayfield. I think at the end of it, Jalen is such a good combination of those two guys, and he's different. Kyler to me was kind of the silent assassin, not a big vocal guy. Baker was a big vocal guy, chip on his shoulder, aggressive, emotional, all those things. Jalen's so even-keeled, but he's just such a killer on the field too. He always seems to be the right decision. And I think, this weekend at Kansas, I think was the first time all season where you could raise your hand and say, oh, what was he thinking on that play? But it took him, 5 games for us to have a question mark?
Can you imagine, though, how bored Jalen Hurts must have been?
Oh, my
He's
gosh.
never played in a stadium that was 2/3 full, and he did on Saturday.
Exactly. That's an excellent point, Todd. That's going to change this Saturday, I believe. So, again, as a neutral fan, this game is always so exciting to watch as on TV. It's always interesting for me to watch, too, because they always show the stands. So it's always interesting to see who starts flooding out first. Is it the Crimson or is it going to be the Burnt Orange? And I think Saturday, the Burnt Orange is going to be long gone. Texas is ranked 11. OU's ranked in the top 5. I think there is such a large discrepancy between OU and the rest of the Big 12. Todd, you said it on last week's episode. That includes Texas. There is such a large gap between these two teams, in my opinion. But all that is to say, it's OU Texas. Anything could happen. But I firmly believe that OU is going to more than cover the 10.5-point spread they're given this weekend.
See, I think that, look, I called earlier in the season that I thought that OU would beat Texas in this game, so I'm sticking with that. And I still, as a Sooner fan, feel confident that OU has a very good shot in this game. And I think that Jalen Hurts is the X factor. What he's able to do, the not freaking out because it's a big-time game. He's been in a lot of big games before. He's played in national championships, Iron Bowls, you name it, he's done it. SEC championships. He's been at the highest level of the sport multiple times and has performed very well. And so I don't expect anything different from him from that perspective. I just think that he's going to be able to come in there and not freak out and keep the rest of the offense from freaking out, put up the points and put up the efficiency that offense has seen all season. Now, Texas probably has the best defense that OU is going to see, arguable, definitely not secondary. The Texas secondary is very porous.
You're welcome for wiping them out.
Hey, thank you so much. And so I just honestly think that Hurts is going to be able to go in there, score enough points that the much improved OU defense is not going to have near as much on their shoulders as they had the last couple of games.
Everybody has been wondering, how good is OU's defense? Well, I don't think it's world beaters, but I think it is much improved from what it has been. And I said that even after the Houston game. We're going to find out a lot by Saturday evening. Toby says this in this next segment. You could make a case that OU, for the first time in a while, may actually have a little bit better defense going into this game with the Longhorns than Texas does. But we're going to find out because Texas has played offenses from LSU and Oklahoma State. OU has not faced anybody near the caliber offensively of those two teams.
Yeah, and obviously you have to look at a big asterisk next to what the Sooners have done this year because of their non-conference schedule and the first couple of Big 12 games being teams that are generally towards the bottom of the league. But I will say the Sooners did a pretty good job of containing Texas Tech, who then turned around and I thought had a really good game against Oklahoma State. And so for that reason, I have a little bit more faith in what this Sooner defense has done this season. But still, they have not seen any kind of – they have not had a test like this, and they may not have another test like this until the Big 12 championship.
All right, guys, what do you think? KP says they cover the 10.5. What about you?
I'm going to say they win, and I don't know if it's going to be 10.5, but I think they win by any margin. I'm going to say probably about 7 points.
Bingo, that's exactly what I was going to say. I don't think they cover. I think they win by 7 or 8 points.
Yeah, and I think it's a touchdown game.
I think there's two big questions out there right now, and I think one gets answered this weekend. And the questions are, is Texas back? And the other question is OU for real / is OU's defense for real? And I think we find out the answer to those questions this weekend.
All right, moving on. Disappointment in Lubbock. KP, your thoughts? OSU goes out and lays an egg against Texas Tech. And from what I could gather, I was en route to Arkansas, so I didn't get to watch it, but I listened to it and followed it through social media. Cowboys apparently were not ready to play that football game.
Not at all. I mean, so we open up the game, we receive the kick, and play 2, Spencer is rushed pretty heavily, and the announcer mentions, oh, Spencer's really, you got to watch that ball security. He's kind of just hanging it out there for anybody to grab it. Play 3, 3rd down, Spencer gets sacked, stripped the ball, Texas Tech recovers, goes down the field, kicks a field goal. So, I mean, immediately the momentum is all with Tech. Their defense is running on the side, jumping up and down. All the momentum belongs to them, and they just carried it all the way through the half. Guys, it was 20-0 with 20 seconds to go. With 30 seconds to go in the first half before OSU finally gets on the board with a Chubba Hubbard 3-yard run. So it's 20-7 at halftime. It was over then. We kind of made a valiant effort, I guess I would say, in the second half and made the game closer than when it appeared. Final score, losing by 10, 45-35. But the story of the game, Spencer Sanders played like a freshman, unfortunately.
Well, his body language was not good. From what I saw.
It wasn't great, but...
And that was on playbacks and stuff. Like I said, I didn't watch the game.
So his body language wasn't great, but I do like the fact that Gundy didn't give up on him, because I think if Gundy pulls him, even for a series, even to look at
Should never have done that. He's your quarterback of the future.
He's your quarterback of the future, and I think that kills his confidence, and I think it was a good move to leave him in there. But again, guys, I've said it before, and I'll say it again. This weekend, he played like a freshman. What do you think about maybe getting in some action last year, Gundy? What about those 4 games? You think a little bit of experience might have helped a little bit on Saturday? I think so, because they got after him and got to him early. Texas Tech had a great game plan for Oklahoma State. And by the way, that looked like a different team from one Saturday to the next. You got to give Texas Tech and their coaching staff credit, because the way they looked against OU and the way they looked against OSU.
Well, there's 2 differences. First of all, OSU is not OU.
You're right.
And second of all, the game was in Lubbock, where they're always dangerous, as opposed to being in Norman the week before.
You're right. But that defense looked like they could tackle.
See, they didn't look like they could tackle you and I the week before.
Exactly. Their quarterback came out. They had a solid game plan. Their quarterback, by the way, he should have had he threw for 4 touchdowns. He should have had 6. He missed 2 receivers that were wide open just by overthrowing it. But Texas Tech's receivers looked like they could play in the NFL. Their defense looked like they had some guys that belonged. They beat us up, but I don't know if it was OSU playing bad or Tech playing great or a combination of both, but OSU just did not have it. Spencer Sanders having 5 turnovers. That was massive. 3 picks, 2 fumbles, and they were all his fault. I'm sorry, but it's just... He did not have a good game. Hopefully he bounces back from it again. At the end of the day, I liked what he said after the game. He put the blame all on his shoulders. There was this, after one of his turnovers, the camera kept showing him on the sideline, head hanging, towel over his head. It's not the body language you like to see, but it's kind of what you expect from a freshman. But again, let's say this. I'm saying, hey, that was Spencer's freshman game, but he's not a true freshman. He's a redshirt freshman. So this was his one. He gets 1. And if this happens again, I think you start asking the questions, is he the guy? I'm not ready to go there yet. A lot of OSU fans were saying, pull him, let's look at something else. I think you go with him. He's a freshman with extreme talent, extremely high ceiling, had a bad game. It is what it is. Move on, go to the next one. It was extremely disappointing to watch, but you put a little bit of it on the coaching staff. A lot of it goes on Spencer, but, I mean, we got out-coached, outplayed every way you look at it and all sides of the ball. So
here's my thought. 45-35, incidentally, the final score. Tech beats Oklahoma State. This is a typical OSU game. And this is why, despite the talent that they have, I can never take them serious. I'm going to tell you guys right now, mark my words, they will have a better than not chance to beat OU in Stillwater. You know why? Because OU's a really good football team. Texas is a really good football team, and they play decent in Austin. They play to the level of their competition. You can't do that and win a conference championship.
No.
OSU always, and you know this, KP, better than any of us, they have 1 or 2, 3 games a year just like that, and sometimes they're lucky to escape. They were not lucky to escape Lubbock, and unfortunately they took it on the chin.
I said it before the season when we were talking about it, when we were picking records. I said OSU is good for 1 to 2. Let's not get crazy and say 3 of these games where they just lose to teams they shouldn't lose to. I said it before the season. They're good for a couple of them, and here's number 1, Texas Tech. They shouldn't have lost to that team, but it is the Pokes way, Todd. It's a detriment. They play to their team's competition, whether that be good or bad, and when it's bad, it looks really bad.
I think the Cowboys have some more losses on the schedule after this one.
Absolutely.
I don't think they're going to go to Iowa State and win. Baylor at home. I know it's homecoming, which that's as good an atmosphere as you're going to find, homecoming in Stillwater. That's not going to be a layup after Baylor humiliated Kansas State last week. And then you got TCU left on the schedule. I mean, there's some losses and some landmines, I think, for Oklahoma State before they even get to Bedlam the final weekend of the regular season.
Yes. They're going to have to find a way to be more consistent than what they showed against Texas Tech. I mean, for the most part, the offense the first few weeks of the season was really clicking well. And I thought that Spencer Sanders looked like a guy that is really going to give the Big 12 a lot of problems. But he has got to stay locked in for the entirety of that game, and he has got to show up prepared, and he's got to not have any more of, like you're saying, Kelby, like a freshman game where it just – I don't know. It didn't seem like, from what I saw, and I saw bits and pieces. I was flipping back and forth between multiple games at that point. But every time I would flip it over to the Oklahoma State game, it just seemed like the whole atmosphere on the Cowboys sideline, and it was started with Spencer Sanders. It seemed like they were almost defeated from that first series.
From that turnover that killed them, like you said. They seemed to come out with the right energy. They were fired up. But, yeah, a turnover on play 3 just puts a dagger in anything that you had going that day. And, again, 5 turnovers. That's what we lost by 10. So that's what I keep having to remind myself. When you lose the turnover battle 5-0, I dare you to find me a game where you
can't win.
You can't. It's no matter who you are. So to lose by 10, I guess, is a positive thing if you're going to turn the ball.
And that
over
is not a
5
Tech
times.
defense that forces a lot of turnovers.
And like I said, a lot of them were self-inflicted. A lot of them were Spencer's bad decisions.
Chuba Hubbard. Last week we talked about should he be discussed among the Heisman favorites. I said, hey, why not? I guess. Not anymore. 34 carries, 156 yards. Can't do it. And you can't lose to Texas Tech. Sorry.
Yeah, I definitely.
And they've got 2 losses now. He's got no chance.
Yeah,
his numbers are there, but
his numbers are there,
look at the
KP, but it
carries,
doesn't
too.
matter.
Yeah.
The carries are enormously high, and they've already lost 2 games and going to lose more. You can't be in the consideration. A lot of times you lose 1 game, you're gone anyway.
Yeah.
And then when you're a long shot on the outside looking in, you stub your toe 1 time, they're done with you. Yep. But now after losing to Texas Tech, it needs to just be over.
Well, and I have questions, too, about the long-term viability of carrying the ball 35 times.
It's scary watching it. You think a guy would be breaking down at this point, but then you watch that run against Kansas State. The dude's just faster than everybody.
I'm breaking down watching him.
The dude is faster than everybody on the football field. But, yeah, you think that's got to come to a heat. I mean, if you look at our stats, I mean, he had 35 carries. Spencer had 19. But again, in the past, Oklahoma State's running backs, I apologize. Oklahoma State's running backs are guys that do more. The backup guys are guys that can do more. And LD Brown really hasn't done enough this year. He had 1 good run on Saturday that I liked, but I think he only got a handful of carries. So, he had 3 carries. 3 carries for 17 yards. That's not enough. But you just can't, again, we're so predictable. It was Chuba get 34 carries, and Spencer, when he was dropping back, it was sad to say, but Saturday his read was literally, all right, is Tylen open? Okay, he's not, I'm going to run. And that was his read progression. There was no look into option 2, look into option 3. He needs to look more for the check down. I mean, every play can't be a big play. He's got to take what we can. And that's how our offense will set you up. Throw the dink and dunk, and it'll open up the long ball. If you throw 2 or 3 slant routes in a row, then run a slant and go, that's wide open. And we have the guys to make the deep ball catches. I mean, we had one drive on Saturday that was one play, 72 yards touchdown. It was all it was a go route to our receiver. He goes up and catches it, makes a juke, runs down the sideline. That's Oklahoma State football. But to get that, you have to dink and dunk. You have to play smart and have a strategy to work yourself. Lincoln Riley is excellent about calling play call. He's like, I want to call this play call, but I got to call 3 or 4 to open that one up.
Set it up.
Perfect. And
this
we haven't been doing a good enough job of doing that.
Podcast for KP today.
I've been having to give way too many compliments to OU and talk way too much trash about my team, but it's been well deserved.
Cowboys off this week. Baylor coming up in 2 weeks. Homecoming in Stillwater. Dallas, Green Bay, the only NFL we're going to talk about this week. 2 weeks ago, we asked who you believed in as being an unbeaten team. We had pairs. One of those was Dallas and Green Bay. Everybody, or most everybody, agreed the Packers and the Cowboys, they were buying, not selling their perfect record. I'm still with the Cowboys because I think the NFC is wide open. But, guys, they're putting themselves in a corner very, very quickly.
Oh, man.
Mm-hmm.
They are 3-0 against 3 of the dregs in the National Football League. They are 0-2 against 2 Super Bowl contending teams in the Packers and the Saints. Dak Prescott, the most cosmetic 463-yard passing performance you'll ever see. And I was telling you, KP, and I'm going to give him credit, Colin Cowherd last week had done some research, and it was a journalist that had actually charted like the previous 3 years of Dak Prescott and what his record was. Guys, he's hardly beaten a team in the last 2 to 3 years that has an above average to good defense. Now, average to below, he's almost unbeaten. I'm going to say it again. Dak Prescott is not a Super Bowl winning quarterback. Now, was he the only problem yesterday? No. But he was very generous with the football. Yeah. Dallas did have 2 offensive linemen that were out. The defense was porous. They gave up a franchise record 4 rushing touchdowns in a game to Aaron Jones, which helped me in fantasy football. Thank you, Aaron and Cowboys. But there's just issues there. I'm not going to sell them yet, but I think we can see how this thing's going. And they have a very favorable schedule in the next month. They get the Jets, they get the Giants, they have a bye week, and then they have a huge home game coming up in a couple of weeks against Philadelphia. And all of a sudden, the Eagles, who looked horrible to start the year, 2 games behind Dallas with 3 games played, now all of a sudden are tied with the Cowboys atop the NFC East. I think Dallas has squandered an opportunity to win this division.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
They had a really early chance. I mean, if they a couple weeks ago, last week, if they win, they're up 3 games on Philly. So this weekend was a huge loss to even it up. But like you said, Todd, Dak was really the problem again. I mean, I was telling people at work today, it was a rough weekend for me as a sports fan because I can't remember a weekend where both my teams' quarterbacks played.
It's been a bad week for you in fantasy football.
Yeah,
too.
That's also true.
Would you like to tell the listeners who you're playing?
Yeah, my guy to my right over here is He told me today, when I walked in here, he goes, well, it's not over yet. I was like, you're right. If Nick Chubb goes off tonight for 51 points, you're right. That's my only hope is Nick Chubb going for more than 50 tonight, which I believe he's done this season already, so watch out. But, yeah, it won't happen again. But anyway, I digress. Again, the problem with both my teams this weekend had bad play from the quarterback, and I can't remember a weekend where both of my teams had the same issue. I mean, they both lose on the same weekends because I'm a Cowboys fan, OSU and Dallas, so this happens a lot. But both weekends, both quarterbacks played terrible. Dak's decision-making, again, my biggest issue with Dak is he takes the most untimely sacks in the world. I'm yelling at him all the time, sitting on my couch, like, you can't take that sack. Move up in the pocket. You are a good running quarterback. Use those feet. Did you see Aaron Rodgers yesterday? I don't know. I think we sacked him once. He's so elusive and just knows when the pocket collapses. That timer in his head is so much better than anybody else, and Dak's might be the worst I've ever seen. So the play calling yesterday, I liked it. It was better than a previous week against the Saints. Kellen Moore kind of bounced back, in my opinion. And again, a big opening drive to the game, just like the OSU Cowboys. Dallas made it a little bit longer, driving down the field. Great play call. First down, and then a routine pass, it seems like, to Amari Cooper, slightly behind him, but it hit him in the hand, so he has to catch it. Slightly behind him, off his hands, interception. So, again, a momentum killer. You open up the drive with a turnover, it's going to be a long day. And they didn't bounce back as quickly as they should. And before you know it, again, it's 30-3 before you know it.
Yeah,
so,
it was 31-3 at one point, and the Cowboys had no life left. You knew that they weren't just going to roll over, and they made a valiant comeback, but you can't dig yourself in that kind of a hole and expect to come back on an NFL team. It's just not going to happen. And I'm telling you, the way that Dak was playing.
And they could spin it in Big D all they want to about how they came back and made it respectable. No, you didn't.
No.
That was window dressing. That game was over at 31-3.
They started, right. The Green Bay started just playing how much clock can we take off per possession. They didn't really care about even advancing the ball all that much. I think their only score in the fourth quarter was after another Dak pick. It was his decision-making was the worst I've seen it since last season, and honestly, this is the guy that I've been ranting and railing about for a year. I finally come onto his side last year and said, or last week or a couple weeks ago, said I was wrong about Dak. And now I'm over here I don't even know.
I'll never be wrong about him.
Oh, my
Because
gosh.
I'm not going to get on his bandwagon. I think he is an adequate NFL quarterback. I think he's in the top half of NFL quarterbacks. There's a lot of dogs playing quarterback in the NFL.
Awful play.
And Dak Prescott isn't one of them. But, guys, this is the Dallas Cowboys. This isn't the Jacksonville Jaguars. You got to be a little bit better and just get in the playoffs.
Yep.
This guy will never win a Super Bowl. He's got the team right now to do it, but I'll lay you odds he won't do it. He melts down when the games are big.
And it's like Kelby was saying, he has some of the most untimely plays, turnovers at the worst possible times. There's never a good time to turn the ball over, let's be honest.
3rd and 6 in field goal range,
still,
you better guarantee Dak's getting sacked and we're out of field goal range.
Yes, they did that 2 different times, took the Cowboys out of field goal range with a 3rd down sack where he got lost, 10, 12, 15 yards on both of those sacks. It was just horrible play from the Cowboys, and I don't care how good the comeback was. I don't think that Green Bay was still even in that game after they were up by 4 touchdowns. They're just trying to cruise to a win, and we got some garbage time points.
And stay healthy. God,
right.
By the way, it's going to be
how many guys got injured for the Packers yesterday? Jeez.
It's going to be very, very interesting to see how much money Dak Prescott gets now, because I think he's like a recession right now, economically. He's costing himself money day by day by day. But there's 2 owners now in Dallas. One is Jerry Jones. The other is Aaron Rodgers. He owns that franchise as much as Jerry Jones does.
Oh, yeah.
He's now 7-2 against Dallas, 4-0 at AT&T Stadium against the Cowboys. Jerry may not want to give him $40 million. Aaron Rodgers is going to say, please, and I'll pay half of it
Right.
as an owner of that franchise, because Dak Prescott ain't beating him.
No. I think that early on in the season, I could have seen Dak getting that 35+ million.
No, he wasn't worth it then.
He wasn't worth it, but I could have seen Jerry Jones riding the hot hand and Dak having a good season and wanting to keep him around. But now there's just no way. He's been too inconsistent. And look, I know we're just a third of the way through the season right now, but there's been too many signs in the past of, like you're saying, Todd, with Dak against bad teams, well, he beats them up. But you can't do that and expect to win an NFC championship, which is what the Cowboys' goal should be. Win the NFC East, win an NFC championship, win a Super Bowl, in that order. And you can't do any of that if you're only going to beat up on the bottom feeders, and you can't ever perform against those playoff caliber teams that you need to.
How about Jason Garrett, KP, yesterday getting a personal foul in the second half by
I saw
spiking the challenge flag?
Oh, man.
Hey, you know what? I'm proud of the guy.
Yeah,
He finally showed a little emotion besides rubbing his hands together for 4 quarters. You know what that showed me or told me? Jason Garrett's rear end's hot.
Oh, yeah.
And he knows he's about to run out of time. And he was letting some frustration, I think, spill over.
And Jerry, after the game, they interviewed him. He was happy. Well, what did he call the official? Like a little darling or something like that. He's like a little darling official. I liked that. Yeah, you're right. Jason Garrett, he knows his backside's hot. He got fired up, and God, his body language makes me so mad. Always the clapping, like you said. I yelled at my TV yesterday after the game was over. The screen it goes right to Jason Garrett. He's got the biggest smile on his face, shaking LaFleur's hand. I yelled at the TV. I go, wipe that smile off your face, Jason. You're a loser. You don't deserve to smile today. You lost that game. I don't like his body. I did like the spike, though, but they said it was something he said, so I'm sure it wasn't just the spike, but I've watched that replay 100 times because the official, as soon as Garrett spikes that flag down there, you can see the official from behind's chest puff up and throw the flag, and he walks off and stares Jason Garrett down like he's some big bad man. Sir, you just threw a yellow hanky on the floor. You're not cool.
No.
You're not tough.
And also, nobody knows your name, bro.
Yeah, I just called you sir because I don't know your name.
Right. You're just a dude wearing pinstripes on the sideline. You're literally just a faceless person out there that
and the reason,
couldn't even pick out in the lineup, and I saw that replay 15 times.
The reason Jason was mad was because I think he was yelling at the official. He's like, I don't have to throw this if you would have got it right. Like, that was 2 feet with possession.
But then he challenges later, and it's a bonehead challenge that he knew he wasn't going to win.
That pass interference, right?
Yeah, that was awful.
He knew he wasn't going to win the challenge.
And he should have saved it because one of the picks, I will say, I think it was when Dak threw like a hitch to Gallup. They showed the replay and the announcers. He was getting beat up the whole way down. The corner like almost pushed him out. That's not exaggerating. They were just hand fighting, and the receiver would have been in that spot, but the hand fighting was so significant that the corner was able to jump that, get a pick, and if Jason Garrett would have had a challenge flag, I think he would have been able to throw that, and it might have been the first one that was overturned where there was an actual interception. I thought that was a crucial moment, but no challenge flag, and we're not going to blame the officials. That wasn't the reason they lost. Dak was the reason they lost.
Well, we're going to punt. Go ahead.
I was going to say, one thing that I will say about the officials, they did allow the Cowboys to have back-to-back turnovers that were overturned in the red zone on like the 5-yard line. So,
and how about the phantom roughing the passer call?
Oh my
I didn't like that either.
The guy he literally puts his hands up to the side of the helmet.
It wasn't aggressive at all. They say,
man.
I think the rule is like an aggressive hand to the face,
which, by the way, guys,
that was not aggressive.
That was
I'm going to tell you right now, I love football as much as anybody. But if it were not for fantasy football, I don't know anymore how much time I would spend watching the NFL.
The flags.
It is awful.
It's a lot.
With the challenges and with the flags. You can't have more than 4 plays, and that's stretching it, without a flag being thrown to the NFL.
And guys, it's going to get worse.
And it's phantom. Again, another horrendous week for the officials in the NBA this weekend.
It's going to get worse before it gets better. I think that now that we've opened, in my opinion, the floodgates, we're able to challenge pass interference.
Stupid.
I challenge roughing the passer is the next one to go. I guarantee it.
And we're going to get to a point where any single play can be.
We're going to get to so many they're going to have to
reviewed.
Increase the challenge flags. It's going to be 3 or 4
It's terrible.
I mean,
it's becoming unwatchable. I'm sorry.
Yeah, they're going to have to put it through some kind of, I don't know, like a robot that's just going to have to make a decision objectively at some point. I mean, the problem is a lot of those calls are subjective. And if you went by the letter of the law, you could throw a flag every single play by looking at one guy doing one thing for a fraction of a second. His hand goes too high up, and then he corrects it. A lot of times, they're not going to call that. They're going to let that kind of stuff go, especially if it's in the trenches. But we're getting to a point here where, oh no, we lost a yard. Let's throw a challenge flag. Somebody had to be holding or doing something wrong at some point in this play. Give us another free down. It's ridiculous.
All right, we're going to punt. We were going to mention the Oklahoma City Thunder. I think we'll hold off because they did have their blue-white scrimmage yesterday. They play the Mavericks tomorrow in their first exhibition game. One thing I want to talk about, and while we're doing this, look up on your phone. We need to update our listeners on our VIBELAND Sports Fantasy Football League. And you need to do it, Casady, while things are looking good in the Fletcher household.
I'm telling you.
What do you want to know about the
just
VIBELAND
give the
Fantasy
standings.
Sports?
Why don't you tell folks where the three of us stand?
This is going to be interesting. I bet there's intention behind this.
No, there isn't. Right, as of right now, you're 3-1.
As of right now, we've got T. Fletcher.
That'd be my dad.
Who's never played fantasy football before.
First time ever.
4-0.
Yep.
We got.
He's about to go to 5-0, by the way.
He's going to beat you?
Oh, yeah. He would have to have 2 players lose points in the Monday night game tonight.
We got Casady Fletcher.
Well, if he has the Rams defense,
3-1.
I did, -1.
Then Dylan Reese at 3-1.
Mm-hmm.
Yours truly at 3-1. Now it's about to be 3-2.
Same
So Casady, you and I were, I guess you could say, tied for second. Todd, you're sitting at 2-2, so that's tied for third. We got a couple 1-3s, and Mr. Bryce Crawford is bringing up the caboose here at 0-4.
Oh, man.
That 0% win percentage. Casady, that's your roommate. You want to help him out a little bit?
I may have to help him set his lineup
He's
as long as he's not playing me that week.
There's a
he's too
couple in
busy.
this league. I'm not certain they've changed the lineup, and we'll have proof of it when we get into the bye weeks.
Yes.
Bryce is too busy working, making QR codes, making
Yeah, he
VBLD, making this
That's
place,
right.
making
Yeah,
the world
yeah.
a better place. So fantasy football is the
Yeah.
least of Bryce's worries.
He is. Hey, there's one guy in America that's the happiest guy ever. Jay Gruden. Finally
Oh,
freed from the hell that is the Washington Redskins.
What a deal. Dan Snyder.
Dan Snyder's going to
Paid
pay
him.
him to go away. And I would say, thank you, Lord.
He's
and
getting
what do
paid
they
what?
do? They promote on an interim basis Bill Callahan. How many times can you retread that tire?
That was the
Wow.
biggest Washington Redskins move I've ever seen in my life. Oh, my God.
Why not
Callahan.
just keep Jay Gruden? Do you think Bill Callahan is going to be any better?
On top
No.
of that, you're paying Jay Gruden to not coach your team
Jay
anymore.
Gruden's got a heck of a deal. He just got paid $40 million to not work for Dan Snyder. I think that's a heck of a
I would
job.
take that job. Sign me that contract tomorrow.
How good
I
Jay
will
Gru-
not work for anybody in that organization
But-
either for $40 million.
How good Jay Gruden is, I don't know. I think he probably has gotten a pass because of his last name a little bit.
Yeah.
But they
He's
have
been there
set
for a
him up to
while.
do nothing but fail.
Yeah.
That front office is a mess. He's had 7 different quarterbacks since he's been there.
Ugh.
They can't even decide what they want to do with their first-round pick, Dwayne Haskins.
Yeah.
Bill Callahan says he's not going to play him right now.
That's ridiculous.
His demeanor in the press conferences lately has kind of been comical. Jay Gruden, he's been like, I don't know, like, what do you think I should do? Like, his responses to the media has just been like, I don't care either, guys. Like, this is a sinking ship. Like, the fact that my key cards still work today to let me in the building's a miracle.
Exactly what he said.
So, but by the way, are there any other Grudens out there that Bill Callahan could go take over a franchise for?
Oh,
The last time
he did in Oakland.
Oakland Raiders, John Gruden leaves. Next head coach, Bill Callahan. Jay Gruden gets fired. Next head coach, Bill Callahan.
That's why we didn't have any of these pearls of wisdom last week.
That's right.
We got through it, but we didn't have the good stuff.
And Bill Callahan, all the Nebraska listeners.
Oh, yeah, I
there's a
bet
little
you
sour-
love him, don't
There's a
you?
little sour taste in our mouth. I think my mom still thinks he's the reason. I mean, I don't disagree with her, but Nebraska's where they're at now. They're rebuilding because Bill Callahan came along. Well, also because they fired a coach.
There
at
is
10 and
no
2,
tread
but-
left on that tire. It's been blown out and blown out and blown out, and they're putting patches on it.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he is just awful, but yet he hangs around.
Trying to make it to the next
And
pit
Washington
stop down
thinks
the
he's going
road.
to pull them out of an 0-5 funk.
Oh, boy.
You know what Dan Snyder is? He's Casady and Todd and Kelby in fantasy football. He is a multi-billionaire that grew up a diehard Redskins fan, and he's just playing it like a fan.
Oh, man.
Yeah. If he
Very
was
poorly, though.
If he was a true Redskins fan, what
Okay,
he
he's
would do
the
is
Bryce
put that team
Crawford.
for sale. Yeah, there you go. If he was a real fan, he would look himself in the mirror and say, I'm the worst thing that's happened to this franchise. The best thing I can do for this franchise is put a for sale tag on it.
Yeah, is make a couple $100 million off this sale. But
Yeah.
Either way, he's coming out looking pretty nice.
All right, VIBELAND Sports Fan Poll question of the week this week. Pretty simple. Who wins the Red River Showdown Saturday in Dallas? A, Crimson and Cream. B, Burnt Orange.
Ugh.
Who wins Red River Showdown Saturday in Dallas? A, Crimson and Cream. B, Burnt Orange. Log on to our Twitter page at VIBELAND Sports. Cast your vote. We'll have the results next week. Coming up next, one of the best guys in our business, Toby Rowland, very talented voice of the University of Oklahoma Sooners, joins us. That's coming up next on episode 31 of VIBELAND Sports. Welcome back to the second segment of VIBELAND Sports, episode 31. I'm Todd Miller, visiting with the voice of the Oklahoma Sooners, Toby Rowland, ahead of a huge showdown nationally and in the Big 12 Conference this Saturday morning down in Dallas. It's Oklahoma and Texas. Toby, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing good, Todd. It's great to talk to you again. How are you, buddy?
I couldn't be better. You ready to go on another cruise?
I would love it. I would. The middle of football season is when I crave a getaway the most. So that sounds fantastic. And for those who don't know, we had a great time together last summer up in Alaska. So that sounds glorious.
I know you're a busy man, so we'll knock some questions out here.
Okay.
Kind of a strange game last week in Lawrence, isn't it? But normally when OU plays at Kansas, it's a strange game. Don't you agree?
I do, and I do agree that it was strange last week. It's really the first time this year that you came away from a game dissatisfied with how they played. I mean, I think they have been pretty on point and taking care of business on both sides of the ball all year long and put teams away. And it was a little lacking. I think there are a lot of excuses you could point to, from the weather to the late start to the lack of an atmosphere to Texas coming up next. But, they won by 25, and really the game was never in doubt, but certainly didn't play as sharp as they had before. Jalen Hurts, I thought, for the first time this year, really put the ball in some dangerous positions at times. I thought the defense in trying to stop Puka Williams looked like they were struggling for the first time really this season. So, yeah, that's not always a bad thing. Sometimes it's good to be able to take a game like that, still win it, and go back and show your guys that they're not as good as they thought they were. But we'll find out a lot more this week because this is really, in many ways, their first real test this year.
A lot of statistics show that Oklahoma actually has a better defense going into this Texas game. Is that a little bit skewed because the Longhorns actually have played a couple better offenses than OU has this year?
Well, there's no doubt that the stats are skewed because Texas certainly has played the better schedule. But I do think it's the first time in a while where there is a legitimate question going into this game as who has the better defense. And it might be Oklahoma, but we just don't have enough evidence yet. And I think coming out of this game, that may be the most intriguing thing. Certainly you couldn't have said that the last few years. Texas definitely had the better defense, and Oklahoma definitely had the better offense going into the Red River Showdown. But there is very encouraging signs through the first 5 games that Oklahoma has improved defensively and maybe dramatically. But until you face Sam Ehlinger and Duvernay and Keontae Ingram and maybe Colin Johnson and this array of offensive weapons that Texas has, especially Ehlinger, who really ripped off 4, 5, 6 yards anytime he wanted to against him last year, twice. Until they show that they can slow him down, slow Texas down, then we really don't know how much Oklahoma is improved defensively over a year ago.
I think they're much improved, Toby, and I thought that even after the Houston game, and here's why, because I think they take on the mindset of their coach, and I'm talking about Alex Grinch. They're very aggressive, they're very physical, and that's something that we really haven't seen from the Sooners defense in the last couple of years.
Yeah, I would agree, Todd. They have gotten into the backfield. They have caused problems for opposing quarterbacks. They have created takeaways, not as many as they would like, but more than they did a year ago for sure. They've been close to a bunch more. And they have played with more effort, more energy. They've rallied to the football. It looks different. I agree with you. It looks different. And that's, like I say, it's been encouraging what we've seen on the defensive side of the ball. But I do also think it is absolutely proper, if you're an OU fan and what you've been through the last few years on that side of the ball, to be cautiously optimistic right now. Until you see them play some more powerful offenses, then you don't really know. One thing that was encouraging is watching what Texas Tech did to Oklahoma State.
Yeah.
A week after Oklahoma held that offense to, I believe it was 16 points, they went out and put up a big number on OSU. So we'll see. This game. It's a different beast. You get in that cauldron down there in Dallas, and anything can happen. But for me, OU's ability or inability to handle the Texas running game, and especially Sam Ehlinger in that Texas running game, is what this whole game pivots on.
How much of a concern, I think it has to be a big concern for Lincoln Riley and his staff, that it looks like, and again, Lincoln's kind of a poker player, or would be a very good poker player the way he hides things, but how big of a concern is it that there's maybe 2 offensive linemen missed Saturday?
It's a concern. Adrian Ely and Eric Swinson, he said, I can't remember his exact wording, but I think it was doubtful, or it insinuated that. They haven't been as good early in the year on the offensive line as they were last year. That being said, I think they've allowed 4 sacks, and they're still top 5 in the country in running the football. So I think we're judging them on a curve a little bit compared to the Joe Moore award-winning offensive line that put 4 guys in the NFL last year. I have no doubts or long-term concerns that the offensive line with Bill Bedenbaugh at the helm is going to be really good by the end of the year or by the second half of the season. Could they give up some plays in this game? Absolutely. And really the most concerning thing that has happened to them early in the year is the penalties.
Yeah.
The number of holding calls.
I think I read today, Toby, that they're the second most penalized football team in all of America. Is that right?
That's right. And they are the most in the Big 12 by a wide margin. And a lot of that has been on the offensive line. So you get into a big close game like this, you get a holding penalty on first down and you're behind the chains, and that could cost you a drive. So that I think is the most concerning thing going into this game about the O-line.
Jalen Hurts, I think, could prove to be very beneficial in this ball game, and here's why. Not from a talent standpoint. This guy is so even keel. I mean, sometimes emotions run really high in this game, and that can get you in trouble. Hurts, it's 1 week at a time, 1 game at a time, get better every snap, and I think he maybe can slide that mindset, I guess, towards the rest of the team.
Yeah, he's got to be the first-time quarterback in the Red River Showdown that you're absolutely not worried about whatsoever being overwhelmed by the situation. He has been in the Iron Bowl. He has played in national championship games. This is not going to be intimidating. I do think that, and he doesn't know what he is in for Saturday. This is unlike any other game, Iron Bowl or anything, just because of the arrangement of the fans and how the day unfolds. And I wouldn't be surprised at all if he doesn't look around at some point and go, wow, this is amazing. But I don't think it's going to affect his play. He is, as you said, even keeled. He's a very mature young man. And I think his attitude has rubbed off not just on the team, but in some ways on the coaching staff. Todd, this is a serious bunch. Mm-hmm. There is not a lot of chuckles on this team. When they are in a press conference setting, on an airplane, in a hotel, anything, they are all about taking care of business. And I don't know if that's necessarily good or bad. Baker Mayfield won a lot of games and had a lot of fun. So I'm not necessarily saying that's the way to go. But Jalen is a serious young man. And I think everybody has kind of adopted that same mindset, and it's got a good chance of working for him Saturday, I think.
This almost sounds stupid when I hear people talk about it, and I've said it too, Toby, that is Jalen Hurts better than we all thought? I mean, here's a guy that if he hadn't gotten hurt, may have been a 4-year starter at the University of Alabama. He's that type of athlete. But has he even really surprised you in some areas as to how good he's been through 5 games?
I'm surprised. Yeah, I was skeptical when I first heard he was transferring because I didn't know if he was a good enough passer to play in the Lincoln Riley system. I thought Lincoln was capable of molding his offense around him and he'd still be pretty good. But the completion percentage and the touchdown to interception ratio is off the charts better than I thought it would be. Really, the Kansas game is the first time that we've seen him throw 2 or 3 passes where you said, what was he thinking there? He put the ball in harm's way. All year, he has been super smart. He has been super accurate, and he's known exactly when to pull it down and run with it. So, yeah, no color me surprised. I thought he'd be good. I had no idea he'd be this good.
Obviously, Lincoln's an offensive genius. He's a quarterback whisperer. Is this the best job he's done with a quarterback? And he's had 2 Heisman Trophy winners.
Oh, boy, that's let's see how the rest of the year goes. It's hard to imagine him doing a better job than he's done the last 2 years with Baker and Kyler, but it's on track so far to be that because he's had to do it so quickly. It's a quarterback who did not spend a year or 2 in his system and learn things. He had to teach him not just an entirely new system, but an entirely new mindset of how they want to play football. It is not like it was for Jalen in Alabama. Just don't screw it up. We've got a great defense, a great running game. Just don't screw it up. And he comes to Oklahoma where it is, go win the game for us. We're going to put it all on your arm. Don't be afraid to make a mistake. Go for the big play. And poaching that Nick Saban personality out of him has been a trick, but he's done an outstanding job.
What's the status of Kennedy Brooks going into Texas this week?
Nobody asked him about it at the press conference today, and I was a little bit shocked. Maybe they will after practice tonight. But my assumption is he'll play, and I only say that because the assumption was last week he would play, because Lincoln said that on multiple occasions. So either the injury isn't severe and they just didn't they wanted to give him an extra week's rest, or somehow they've got a misdiagnosis and it's more severe than we thought. And I think he would have come out and told us that if that was the case. So I think Kennedy Brooks will play. I have no evidence of that. I'll certainly bring it up on the Tuesday night's coaches show. But it certainly makes you feel better knowing that Ramondre Stevenson is running the ball like he is right now.
How open with you do you feel Lincoln Riley is? Because, as I mentioned, he could be a poker player, Toby, the way he keeps a straight face and really keeps a lot of things to himself.
I think he's more close to the vest than Bob was. And that's saying something.
Yeah.
I thought I didn't know that was possible. But, I think he's great. Dealing with Lincoln is great. I think he's very entertaining on the show we do together and in the interviews that we do. But he is not going to give me or anybody information that he feels could put the other team at a competitive advantage. Or if he does, let's say it has to do with somebody who's going to start this week on the offensive line that wasn't public knowledge. He may give me a heads up that that's going to happen, but ask me to hold it until we give the starting lineups that Saturday, which is 15 minutes out from kickoff. So I kind of respect that. He's old school football paranoid when it comes to information.
How interested do you believe Lincoln Riley is in the NFL?
That's a great question, and I don't know the answer. I think all we know is that he has passed on the first wave. The first wave of interest. He's decided he'd rather be at Oklahoma. And anybody who asks me if I think he's going to the NFL, I just kind of refer, well, we've been through this with Bob. And the first time people came after him and he turned them down, we said, that's a pretty good sign. Maybe he does want to be here. And then the second time teams came to him and he turned them down, we felt a little more confident. And by the third or fourth time he turned down the NFL, you knew he meant it. He wants to be a college football coach. Well, I think we're just going to have to live that with Lincoln. We don't know, growing up in Muleshoe, Texas, whether his dream was to one day be the coach of the Dallas Cowboys. And we don't know that. And he's not going to tell us that. So if that job comes open someday and he gets offered it, until he turns it down, we're just not going to know. Now, I could argue why he should stay at Oklahoma or why college football is better than the NFL and job security and all that kind of stuff till I'm blue in the face. But until he turns it down, we don't know for sure.
Do you think he would talk to anybody, a Nick Saban or another big name coach that's been down that road before and maybe not had the greatest success making the transition from college to the NFL?
Yes, I think he's a smart guy and would seek counsel. And whether that's, Cliff Kingsbury, what's it really like, because they're best buddies, or whether it's somebody, I don't imagine it would be Nick, but I imagine that he would seek advice from people who have done it before to say, what's it really like? He's a whip, man. I mean, he is smart as a whip, and he's not going to dive blindly into any pool without investigating it thoroughly, especially when it means giving up a premier job like he has at Oklahoma. So absolutely, I think he would do that.
And money really is not a factor anymore. I mean, back when you and I were growing up, it was a big factor for college coaches to make the jump. Now they're making NFL money plus at these super programs. It just basically comes down to whether he wants to take that next step and test his mettle against other great defensive coaches.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, you could see, let's say it is Dallas, and Dallas offers him $10 million to be their coach, and Oklahoma's upstairs to $7 million, and you could sit there and say, well, the cost of living in Dallas versus Norman and all that kind of stuff. it's a bunch of money. Either way, it's a bunch of money. I think it all comes down to, in your heart, what's your dream? And does he love it here and he wants to have a statue at OU someday next to Barry and Bob and Bud and go down as one of the all-time greats in college football history? Or does he want to challenge himself at the highest level of football? So time will tell.
Toby Rowland, the voice of the Sooners, is our guest. That brings me to my next question. You're talking about living a dream as far as a coach. You're living a dream behind the microphone every Saturday, aren't you?
Absolutely. You and I have talked about this before in private settings, but I consider myself unbelievably fortunate and lucky to have gotten the breaks that I had and have people put faith in me, because I am not a better play-by-play guy than thousands of people around the country, and certainly you are one of those. I just happen to be in the right place at the right time. And all you can do is, when a door is opened and you're given an opportunity, to walk through it and try to make the best of it. And I grew up in Mustang, Oklahoma, a giant Sooner fan, a giant fan of sports on the radio. And if I had been gifted the Virginia Tech job or the Utah State job or Southern Nazarene back in the day, the ability to call games for a living when you do what we do is as good as it gets. But for it to be my beloved Oklahoma Sooners and that chair that Bob Berry and John Brooks and Kurt Gowdy and Walter Cronkite all sat in, it's overwhelming. It really is. And I just hope that, we try to make them proud.
How difficult is it, and you and I have talked about this too, managing the type broadcast that you guys put together, because you have so much going on. You have so many different voices, both on the sidelines and in the booth. You kind of have to be the ringleader, don't you?
Yeah. It's unique, but we're proud of that. We have consciously tried to break the mold a little bit on what a college football broadcast sounds like. We intentionally don't want to sound like every other broadcast in America. So we have tried to be creative and find different ways to do that. And one is that we've got a lot of people on air.
Now,
we've got a lot
Toby,
of open mics.
Is that you? Is that your footprint of the broadcast, or is that an idea that came down maybe from Learfield?
No, Learfield wasn't real hip on it when it first happened.
Interesting.
The way that sidelines have the first thing we did is leaving the sideline mic hot at all times is kind of unheard of. You know how it works. The sideline guy's mic is off and he indicates to the producer he's got something, and the producer tells the play-by-play guy that the guy downstairs has something, and whenever the play-by-play guy feels like it, he tosses down to the sideline guy.
Right.
And that's the way it's done in 99% of the booths, and it has been forever. Well, we decided that we wanted Chris to be able to jump in whenever he had something and be another voice in the broadcast. And we trust him to know when it's appropriate, to know when to get out of the way. And he is great at it. And then we added a sideline analyst who is Gabe Eichert now, and said, hey, why not have someone on the field who's breaking it down for us, just like somebody in the booth? So, those are just a couple of the things from, the scene setters and different things that we've tried. Some of them haven't worked, but we haven't been afraid. And Joe Castiglione has encouraged us to not be afraid to try things and to especially be creative. And, he does that with everybody that works at OU. And he expects our radio broadcast to do exactly what he expects his football, basketball, baseball, and softball teams to do. And that is be number one in the country. Not just be good, not just tell the score and the time enough, but to be the best collegiate radio broadcast in America. And that means being innovative. That means leading the way. There's nothing more complimentary than when you turn on the radio on a Saturday and you hear another school trying something that we've been doing for a couple of years. And I know that hey, we're kind of leading the way here. We're not following, we're leading. So it's a lot of fun when you have a leader like Joe Castiglione that has that kind of faith in you.
I've got about 3 more questions for you. Who knows, maybe more if I think of some along the way. But you and I could talk forever, and we have. How special was it Toby, that day that you found out you were the new voice of the Sooners to replace a guy like Bob Berry who had mentored you in the booth?
Well, I didn't believe I had much of a shot. It was my dream job, but I was young. I did not have the most impressive resume of everyone who I knew wanted the job. So my assumption was I'll get a listen because I was the sideline guy at the time. Just out of respect, I figured they'd listen to my tape. But I figured probably someone with more experience and a bigger name would get the job. And as the process went along and the cuts were made, the top 5 to the top 3 and so forth and so on, we started to get a little more excited and believe maybe it could happen. At the same time, you always protecting your heart not to be devastated if it doesn't. But on the day I got that call that we had been selected, I cried like a baby. I called my wife. She cried like a baby. And
Probably
I
because
think
she knew she was never going to see you again.
well, honestly, I think she sees me more now than she did in my former life. So maybe that's why she was crying. But it was. I'm not just saying this because it's what you're supposed to say. It was and remains to this day a dream come true, and it's been better than we even imagined. A lot of times you get into things like this and you see how the sausage is made, and you're like, "Oh, this wasn't all that I thought it was," and that has not been true. It has been an amazing, amazing ride, and weeks like this that we get to be a part of in a small way and plant your stamp on what happens in a small way is unbelievable. And Todd, I'll sit up there. There's a moment before kickoff, between the coin flip and kickoff, where I toss it around the horn and I ask for everybody's final thoughts. And there's 2 minutes there where Plank's talking, and Gabe is talking, and Teddy's talking, and Coach Murph's talking, where I don't. And I will slide one of my earpieces to the side and look around 92,000 people in crimson to my right and in burnt orange to my left, and that beautiful emerald green turf and the blue sky and Bevo and the horses, and say, I cannot believe what I'm getting paid to do today. And appreciate it, appreciate it.
Yeah.
And then I'll slide the headset back on and we'll go to work. But it's awesome, man. It's just awesome.
You kind of touched on my next question, and that's what does OU Texas mean to you? Because it's the holy grail for both Longhorn and Sooner fans as far as rivalries are concerned. You grew up probably going to this game, listening to this game, and now you are a part of this game.
I think it's the greatest single game in American sports. There may be better rivalries. I don't know. I haven't been to them. I haven't been to Alabama, Auburn. I haven't been to Army, Navy, or some of the Yankees, Red Sox. But as far as a single game and a single setting, I don't think we've done anything cooler than OU Texas in American sports. I did go to it when I was a kid several times. I sat in the end zone. I sat on the 50-yard line in the upper deck one day. I used to go with my buddy when I was in college. We'd drive down without tickets and we'd wait outside for the buses when the buses would arrive, and inevitably you'd find somebody who had brought extra tickets with them and get in and eat a corny dog. And I did it all and did not get to cover it very much when I was at Channel 9 because it was a big game and Dean would always go. But to be a part of it, like I said, is unbelievable. And to see the pageantry, it just doesn't lose its luster. Sometimes things that are special like this over time diminish. And for some reason, somehow, this game hasn't. And it just seems to get better and better every year.
I hope you understand just how much of an appreciation I have for your work, because I do. I admire you as a professional, but Toby, much more as a person. You and I go all the way back to the days you were in the NAI at Southern Nazarene. You haven't changed a bit. And I tell people that all the time, and that's a credit to you and your family. But you do such great work on different levels. You've done the Scene Setter, which has become a phenomenon with Oklahoma Sooner fans. You expected it to be good. Did you expect it to ever be as popular as it has become?
No, I didn't intend for it to be this at all. Honestly, again, back to the trying new things edict, really. I thought, hey, I like to write. I've always loved to write, and at Channel 9, I had the opportunity to write features. But when you're calling a game, that's different. That's a different skill set. There's not. It's ad lib, and I was looking for a venue for some creative writing, and so I thought, well, I'll write a little intro to the game that will air out of the last break, and just set the stage. It'll set the scene. That's where the name came from,
Yeah.
and I did something. I voiced it and put a little music under it, and it used to just run on the radio for about a year and a half. It just ran on the radio, and people liked it and it was popular, and then they started putting video to it. Now it's kind of blown up to become the monster that it is. And there's some pressure that's involved with it now.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Especially when a week like this rolls around, people expect something grand and earth moving, and it's daunting. It's a little daunting sometimes to come up with something new and creative. But I like the challenge, and I'm flattered as can be that that people enjoy them, and I do have a part of me that doesn't want it to get old. So I don't know if I'll do them forever. There may be a time like Seinfeld when it needs to come to an end so that it will still be special, but I'm not sure we've reached that point.
God help us if that day comes, Toby, because I'm telling you, if social media crashes on a Saturday morning and that scene setter is not released when it's supposed to be, I think the bowels of the earth will swallow us up. So please don't stop doing it, okay?
All right. We'll keep going for a while.
All right, OU has not played well in Dallas the last few years. You expect a really crisp performance coming off the KU game?
I don't know. I hope for one. It is true, though, that they have not played great down there. The last several years, especially as a favorite, and they're a sizable favorite again this year. I think there are some signs that give them a chance. I think the beat-up secondary for Texas is a real advantage. They're 126th in the country in pass defense. And obviously, when you're going to face Lincoln Riley, that's not good. And they're hurt back there, too. So I think there are some signs, the improved defense we talked about earlier, that Oklahoma could win and perhaps win comfortably. But you kind of got to throw logic out the window. And I'm always a little hesitant of anyone going into this game who speaks too confidently about anything. If they are absolutely convinced one side or the other is going to win, I pretty much disregard them as a fool, because it's just different, man. It's a game in which you throw out all trends and presuppositions and statistics and just see how the momentum and the emotion of the day carries it.
Appreciate your candid answers, man. I appreciate your friendship and your time here on VIBELAND Sports. Let's get together soon, and maybe we can go cruise with Uncle Vern again sometime. How's that?
I love it. It's great talking to you, Todd. Let's get together soon.
All right, Toby Rowland, the voice of the Sooners, our guest here on episode 31 of VIBELAND Sports. We'll be back to wrap it up right after this. And again, a big thank you to the voice of the Oklahoma Sooners, Toby Rowland, for joining us here on episode 31. I'll tell you what, there's a lot of very talented guys in our business, no more so than Toby Rowland. And I'll tell you what, there's nobody any better of a person than Toby as well. And again, we appreciate him coming on and being part of episode 31. Guys, quickly on our final segment, let's talk MLB Playoffs. It looks like that we're just about to get to the decisive series, both in the American League and the National League. We're going to fast forward and give you our picks for the World Series. And I'll start. I like the Houston Astros out of the American League. I like the Los Angeles Dodgers out of the National League. And I like the Astros to knock off the Dodgers in 6 games. I just think Houston's pitching combined with that offense, not that the Dodgers don't have it all too. I just think that's almost an unbeatable combination when you're rolling out Garrett Cole and you're rolling out Justin Verlander the way those guys are pitching. Now, there is one question mark right now, and that's Zach Greinke. Zach Greinke earlier in the week got blown up at Tampa Bay in what was an elimination game for the Rays. 3 2/3, 5 hits, 6 earned runs, and 5 strikeouts in less than 4 innings of play. Zach Greinke is a big league pitcher. We all know that, a big-time pitcher. But here's the thing. He's got to start pitching better in the postseason. And if I'm an Astros fan, that's my one remaining concern as to whether this team can win it all.
Absolutely. I mean, that's why they went and got Greinke, is for games like this. And I think Greinke, when he joined up with the Astros, he was pretty excited to pitch in these opportunities. So Like Todd, I'm with you. I'm going the Astros over the Dodgers, but I'm going to say they do it in 5 because I just think the Astros have all the tools, all the players, the bullpen, the pitching staff. They've got it all. They are a World Series team, no question to me. I mean, I honestly would think if they don't sweep in the World Series, I think the Dodgers would be considering themselves pretty lucky. I think this is an all-time team that they put together, not at the beginning of the season, but how they built throughout the season, how they played, and kept their momentum going. I just think the Astros are the team to beat, and I don't think anybody can do it.
I can't see them sweeping them. The Dodgers just have too much pitching. If Clayton Kershaw is on, Walker Buehler is on, it's going to be tough. That's why I like him in 6. I think 5, like Kelby said, is a very, very realistic outcome. Don't be surprised, though, if the Dodgers win it. I mean, they're very, very talented. Here's the thing that pushes me, if nothing else, over the edge for the Astros. They have the best record in baseball.
Sure.
And if Game 7 happens, and again, so far, 2 of us don't believe it will, it's going to be in Houston, and that place is crazy in playoff baseball.
Yeah, I mean, now, this may not be just an out there pick. I also have Houston and the Dodgers in the in the World Series, but I'm going to go with the Dodgers. I think this is the year they get it done. They have had too many opportunities where I think they went in as the best team or one of the 2 best teams in baseball, get all the way to the World Series, and then for whatever reason just fall flat. I think they have the experience. I think that's something that's a little bit of an extra flame for them, is that the fact that they've been there multiple times now, back to back, and have not got closed the deal. And I think they're just due this year. I think for them, I know that the Astros pitching is just phenomenal, but I think the Dodgers offense has impressed me more than I thought it had or thought it would up to this point. And I think they can hang with them on arm for arm, at least for the first 3 in the rotation, and that's all you really need in a World Series.
I tweeted it out this past week. I am far from a Dodgers fan, okay? I've started liking that team a little bit more since they have their farm system here in Oklahoma City.
Same.
Because I am a huge Oklahoma City Dodgers fan. And it is so cool, as it really is with Houston, too, because a lot of those guys played here in Oklahoma City when we were
Springer here.
When we were an Astros affiliate. It is so cool to see Oklahoma City and guys that even as recently as mid-season this year, we're here in Oklahoma playing with the Oklahoma City Dodgers. I think Houston, the Dodgers, is a great series, but I'm also going to tell you, you could put the Yankees in the Dodgers. That would be a good series, too. I like Houston, though, better over L.A. because their pitching, to me, is better. But there's 3 teams that you match 2 of them up, it would be a dynamite. Easy for me to say, a dynamite fall classic.
I think any other year, but this year the Yankees would get in, but because of they've got to get through Houston to get there, and that's why I don't think they'll do it. I think Houston is, like I said before, just on another level this year. They're feeling it like they never have before. So.
And I think that the pitching staff issues that have plagued the Yankees for a lot of the season, I think, are going to show their head in the worst possible moment in the ALCS. So I would expect for Houston to keep doing what they're doing. I know what they have on the mound. I trust those guys. There's only maybe 1 or 2 arms in that entire bullpen that I trust for the Yankees.
When you're good enough offensively, sometimes you can just go outscore people, and
That's
the Yankees
true.
have been good enough to do that this year. But I think in October, when the weather is cold and the ball doesn't jump off the bat like it does in June or July, I think pitching wins out in the Fall Classic, and that's where I think Houston beats New York to get to the World Series and face the Dodgers for a second time in 3 years. So, good times. I'm telling you, there's nothing better, in my opinion, than playoff baseball.
Oh, man.
Nothing. I
It's
mean,
so much
playoff
fun.
hockey's the same way. It's just levels above the regular season.
Absolutely.
And you don't have to be a fan of either team to enjoy any of the games. And that's one thing I do like. I think too many times the NBA playoffs, if I don't care about one of those early round matchups, I'm not going to watch it, and I don't feel like I've missed anything. If I miss even like one game of a series in baseball, there's so much that happens. The storylines change so much. The momentum has shifted back and forth so many times. It's like you're saying, Todd, it's a cut above everything else. And I would probably put it as maybe my favorite postseason out there.
It is mine because baseball's my favorite sport. But let's talk about one more thing regarding Major League Baseball and the playoffs. You know, they don't always get very good ratings. But let's be truthful about this. The St. Louis Cardinals and the Atlanta Braves, two huge fan bases, played an afternoon game earlier this week. There has to be afternoon contests in Major League Baseball playoffs. And because of that, you're never going to get a true reading in terms of how many people watch the playoffs. And people go, well, don't have weekday games. You have to have weekday games. If you didn't, your season would be longer than the NBA, which is 6 months. And baseball is predicated on being able to play 2 games in a row or 2 out of 3 days or 3 out of 5 days. If you didn't put it in the afternoon, these guys would be playing once or twice a week. And why would you do that all of a sudden when you get into the most important time of the year? So I think it's unfortunate that Major League Baseball has to play in the afternoon in its primetime seasons, but it's certainly understandable because of the nature of the sport why they do it.
Absolutely, like you said, it's because of the nature of the sport. But yeah, it is unfortunate that, the other day at work, I'm checking my phone, and at 4 o'clock, the game's ending. You know, you want to get home.
Second game.
Yeah, and you want to get home and watch it and enjoy the evening, and stay up late on a Friday and Saturday and watch late night sports. I love that, but yeah, like you said, Todd, it's just not the nature of the sport. And this time of the year, weekends are still dominated by college football. But I think that's going to start to change as these teams get whittled down. People will pay more attention.
Yeah, definitely the ALCS and the NLCS always have better ratings just because of the stakes involved, but also because all their games now can move to nighttime, primetime slots. And again, one thing that makes it cool about baseball is that those games are all played back-to-back, and so it brings the pitching rotation question again into the
You're right.
into the postseason.
You're right, Casady, because if you didn't do it the way it's set up now, you'd only need 2 pitchers.
Right.
And the true test of winning in postseason baseball is the depth of your pitching staff.
Exactly. And it adds that extra level of, oh my gosh, they're going to have to bring this guy out that has to bridge the next 3 innings that hasn't pitched meaningful baseball since July. And there's always that one moment or it's the guy that has, thrown 18 innings over the last 3 games, and he's going back out there again to try to give him one more out. It's just playoff heroics in baseball are, bar none, some of the best moments in sports.
I know this. Major League Baseball is frothing at the mouth, thinking about renewing an old rivalry from the 70s, the Yankees and Dodgers, the 2 largest markets in the country, perhaps with their 2 main teams playing. Don't you know they would love that? But again, our picks, we like Houston or the Dodgers. Yep. KP and I take Houston. You like the Dodgers. I don't think either one of us or any of us are off base too far.
And I don't know if I ever said, but I think it's going to be a long, drawn-out series, and I think the Dodgers win 7.
7, all right.
Hey, I'm good for 7-game series.
I
There's nothing better in sports than Game 7. The 2 sweetest words.
Best 2 words in sports.
All right, that's our show. Thank you for tuning in for episode 31. Don't miss an episode of VIBELAND Sports on Twitter or Instagram at VIBELAND Sports, on Facebook, VIBELAND Sports, or follow us and subscribe on Spotify and Apple Podcast to VIBELAND Sports. For KP, for Casady Fletcher, I'm Todd Miller. Again, thanks for joining us this week. We'll see you again next week on another edition of VIBELAND Sports, a weekly presentation of VIBELAND Inc.